Hi again, everybody. I'm Jamie Allison, and this is the Big Idea, Big Moves podcast. This is the destination for high performers. We talk to people from different genres, different niches, just people doing really cool things in their space, find out a bit about their journey and some of the things that might translate for us as well in the audience. And so we've talked to CEOs, entrepreneurs, lots of athletes. We have one of those today as well. And, so just before we jump into that, if you have been listening to the podcast for a little while, you know that we have a connection with Epitome Sportswear. And it's basically set up to unlock your potential, but it also is something that's quite, diverse. So if you are just whether you're going to the gym yourself or whether you're also going and maybe watching your daughter play soccer or your children going for a general hike and just going out and getting things done, their whole motto is live life fully, and so that connects really well with us. The other thing that's also really important to us as well is that they believe in giving back to the community that they serve, and they're working hard to impact the inequities in opportunity for girls and women in sport. And for that reason, a portion of their profits go directly to organizations and initiatives that support girls in sports. So check them out. It's at Epitome Sportswear, so EPITOME sportswear.com, or you can go to our Instagram profile and you can go directly through to there as well, and hopefully be able to find something that works for you. So really excited today to have Arielle Loewen with us. She is a two-time CrossFit Games athlete, soon to be three. We'll talk about that. She's also twice so far been the fittest mom in America, which is kind of cool. And I know that we have her daughter there too, which is nice as well. Her inspirational achievements really make her stand out in CrossFit, and this year is I think probably the best year yet that she's had. She's finished the Open and individual quarterfinal in first place. And North America West, she took third in the Americas at the semis as well. So she punched her ticket again to the CrossFit Games this year. And also, obviously, she's a busy mom. She has her MBA and is a licensed real estate agent. So all those things that we love talking to people about and seeing kind of how they do all of those different things. So first of all, Arielle, congratulations on your recent podium finish, I guess, just last week, I guess now. So not too far away. So congratulations.
Thanks for having me. It's still crazy. I thought about the semis so much and
Yeah.
all the anticipation leading up to it. And like you said, now it's over. That easy.
Yeah, that easy. Yeah, everybody
Yeah.
probably thinks that it's so easy, but like a really cool event and did really well again. Maybe just before, because we will talk a little bit about that, but I thought for those people who in the audience maybe aren't fully aware of kind of how you got into CrossFit and things like that. I know that you're a big athlete and you also were a bit of a fan of CrossFit before you got to where you are now. Maybe talk to us a little bit about that journey and how CrossFit became a thing for you and to get to this point.
Yeah, I fell in love with it. Well, I'll start with I was just graduating high school. I am used to track season, cheerleading, where they kind of have built into our schedule a workout time. So
Yeah.
when high school ended, I didn't want to go to the gym. And I was like, I don't know what to do in a gym. So I looked for other gyms. And wouldn't you know it, the place I was working at was a cheer facility. And my boss went to CrossFit. So he was like, hey, I think you'd be perfect for this thing called CrossFit. Come try a free class with me. So I went with him. And immediately after I tried it, I showed up. People told me what to do. We did it together. There's a group aspect, and I just fell in love. But I was right out of high school, 18. CrossFit is very expensive.
Yeah.
I couldn't afford it. So I actually went to the owner. His name was Brian. I was like, Brian, I love what you're doing here, but I can't afford it. Can we work out some type of deal? So I actually cleaned the gym in exchange for a gym membership when I first started.
Yeah.
Fell in love with the sport. He taught me everything I knew. It was just so fun to look back on. So I went to his gym for like 5 years. In those 5 years, I learned all the movements and then qualified for my first regional, back then it was called.
Yep.
So tried to make regionals for 5 years, made it, but could never make it to the games. And it wasn't until 2018, I'm at the regionals competing and I find out I'm pregnant. So I retire from CrossFit, stay at home mom, and I like changed my whole identity. And then it wasn't until after I think Blakely was like a year old, I was like, let's try competing again. And then now I've had awesome success with it. But along the way, I just fell in love with CrossFit.
Yeah.
So I've been doing it since 2012, almost every day, because I just love CrossFit. So it's fun that I can keep that in my life. And now it's kind of like my job, but I
Just
would
part
do
of
it
it. Yeah.
anyways. Yeah, even if it wasn't my job.
Yeah. Well, and so a lot is made about the fact that, you took that time off and became that kind of full-time mom and then came back and had success really quickly, kind of right after that, and
Right.
and really kind of high level success. Was there is there a real key for that for you, or was it just kind of that you enjoy it so much and kind of were able to jump right back in? Like what was special about you? Because so many people have started doing that, I think, since you've done it. Like you've inspired a lot of other people to think, okay, I can do this and do it
Yeah,
right
I've
after.
gotten so many messages of just support, like you said, of people saying, like, oh, you give me hope. It's not over.
Yeah.
But for me, it started with kind of like after high school. Okay, let's find something to do so I could stay fit. Same mentality after giving birth. Like you're kind of overweight, everything feels squishy.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, just get back in the gym, focus on health.
Hmm.
So for that whole first year, the priority was eating right, focusing on health. And it was amazing how just focusing on being healthy
Hmm.
made me feel great mentally and physically. And then I was like, oh, maybe I still got it. Let's try and compete. So the goal
Yeah.
was never, let's get fit so we can compete, go back to the games. It was like, let's just be healthy. What does
Yeah.
that look like? Eating real foods and trying to go to the gym 3 to 5 times a week, fit it into your schedule. And then
Yeah.
that was just my habit for the first year back.
And so now, I mean, you've obviously you've got to train at a different level right now, I'm
Right.
sure. And that makes it a little bit different. But like what does it how do you juggle those things? Because I'm sure there are tons of moms that know kind of how busy a mom's life is, aside from
Right.
also doing all the other things. Um, how do you try to balance those things? And I mean, you say I'm a full-time mom who does CrossFit. So how does that work for you?
I have to set up boundaries and prioritize my time, especially at this level. When I
Yeah.
was just getting back to being healthy, which was I'd go to my 1 hour noon class at the local affiliate I went to,
Yeah.
the priority was okay, noon to one, I will every day try and make that class. So that means if somebody asks me on a lunch date, hey, I can go to lunch with you, but it'll have to be about 1 or 1:30. So just prioritizing my time in that season. Now it's the same thing of okay, I make breakfast for me, for my daughter, and then I train from 11 to 1. So if people want to hang out, people are calling, like even awesome podcasts, I'm like, okay, I can do it either before or after. But that chunk of time is special and it's my work time. So I just have to prioritize my work time, quote unquote. And then if Blakely has gymnastics, it can be anytime after 1 o'clock. Or if she wants to go to the park, we go after 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Just setting boundaries.
Oh, very cool. And I mean, you've mentioned and Blakely's there. How much does she know what's going on with you? Like, I mean, it's got to be kind of cool to be able to share that with her to a certain extent, and because she's around so much. But how much does she kind of pick up from the kind of strong mom stuff you're doing?
I think more than I know. But
Mhm.
she went to the games last year with us. She went to
Yeah.
Lollapalooza with us this year. So she can see it, but I wouldn't say she loves it either.
Yeah.
Like even this past weekend, we FaceTimed maybe 3 of the 5 nights.
Yeah.
And it was like, Mom, when are you coming home? Like, come
Mhm.
on,
Yep.
let's come home. So it kind of puts it in perspective of semifinals might be like all I think about all weekend because it's a really big point of my season. She's
Yeah.
like, get over it. Come home. Let's hang out. Like it's not
Yeah.
that important. So she
Yeah.
helps balance me, but I don't think she loves it as much as I do.
Yeah. No. Well, and to be expected at that age, they,
Right,
they they
right.
just like to be playing. They'd rather play with their mom. So.
Exactly. Which I don't blame her.
So when you're going into competition, because you've been to the games before, and you're kind of at this level getting ready for that now. I'm just wondering, from we know that you're doing lots of physical training. Do you do much from a mental performance standpoint, or how does that work for you when you're lining up for competition? Do you have to do much kind of, some people visualize all of those things. How do you approach that?
Mine is a lot different than most of my competitors. I know
Yeah.
some of my competitors have a mindset coach who
Hmm.
will like kind of break down the event, tell them reassuring thoughts.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just I open the Bible and I read it. And if
Yeah.
I'm discouraged, I look for a verse about discouragement, and then that resonates with me. For me, it's more of aligning with my values and aligning with something higher than myself. Because if I
Yeah.
look to my husband for my mental support, like he's human, he's flawed just like me, he'll fall short every time. So I try
Sure.
and just go somewhere higher.
Very cool. And does it
Yeah.
when you're in competition, does it make any difference that because you've been watching the CrossFit Games for a long time. So some of those people, you're now suddenly like at the games, you could be beside Tia and Annie and those people you've probably
Right.
watched for a very long time. Is it hard not to be a little starstruck when you're in the first couple of times?
Oh yeah. The first year I went to the games was all starstruck. Just
Yeah.
like, I'm here, my jersey's here, he is over here, just taking pictures and soaking it all up. Last year was a big year for me because it was the first year I showed up to the games and I felt like, okay, I'm going to compete this year.
Mhm.
I'm not here to get my jersey. I'm not here to be starstruck, have a good time. It's like,
Yeah.
I'm going to have fun, but I'm also here to try and get in the top 10 or try and push myself and beat whoever I need to do as good as I can. So last year
Yeah.
was a really fun year because I felt like I tapped into some of my competing potential. So
Yeah.
hopefully we'll see how that happens this year.
Well, it's interesting because you're one of those people that people kind of look to and connect with pretty quickly because that people see you as very approachable, all of those things as well.
Thank
How
you.
does that feel knowing that you're maybe that inspirational person, not just obviously for moms. I mean, a lot of people will say that right away, but also just for that young athlete who's thinking, oh, I could maybe sometime get to that level. What's that like for you, knowing you play that role for other people now?
It means the world if people think that and they see that because my goal is always there's a lot of good CrossFitters out there, and I personally don't think I'll ever be the best CrossFitter out there, but I'd like to be remembered as something more than just someone who stood on the podium or someone who was top 10 at the games. I want to make people feel welcome. If they're scared backstage, I'd love to see the scaredness and comfort them because I mean, emotions are high and there's so much
Yeah.
stress and anxiety backstage. Even a smile to someone, I feel like could go a long way. Because I remember in 20, maybe 15, when I was competing at regionals, it was the
Hmm.
first time they had super regionals almost.
Yep.
So I had Camille LeBlanc in my region, all these amazing people who I look up to. And I'll never forget Margot Alvarez somehow knew my name. So I'm back there scared, warming up. And she just said, like, let's go, Arielle, go kill it. And just that little comment, she would never remember it, made the world to me. So if I could do
Yeah.
that for someone else, so simple, but it's just looking and seeing people.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's like anything where you have some profile, not understanding the impact of kind of one small thing that is a small thing to you, but could be huge to that person being
Exactly.
able to move that next step. Um, do you have actually? It leads me into that. Do you have or have you had specific mentors as you've went through this, or is it have you looked to people generally, just taking bits and pieces? What's that been like for you?
I wouldn't say I've had mentors. As far as like performance based stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, or either. Because
Yeah,
sometimes I think, sometimes in other parts of your life, that's what is more important or as important.
true. I wouldn't say performance wise. When I need help, I know to reach out for help. So I've kind of taken over my programming this past year. And
Yeah,
actually, the individual who I originally started at their gym, Brian,
yeah,
I reached out to him because he's the strongest person I know. So I reached out to him and he's given me a strength program, which has been super refreshing. And
yeah,
then this year I want to work on running. So I actually reached out to Haley Adams and was like, hey, you're the best runner in the sport. Can you help me? So I don't
yeah.
have like one specific mentor, but I'm not afraid to reach out to someone who's better than me and ask for their help if they're willing to give it.
Yeah. And do you, when you're trying to figure out, you work on your weaknesses and your strengths, I'm sure, but
Mm-hmm.
do you have a way of doing that? Like, do you very specifically just work on kind of specific weaknesses, or do you spend more time on your strengths during training?
I'll usually honestly sit down Sundays and I'll write down all of the movements I want to hit.
Mhm.
So let's say sandbag pistols, clean and jerk snatches, and I just have this list and then
Yeah.
I'll make that list into my programming. So I try and always have my weaknesses in there and my strengths in there and just kind of work them together. But competing is always fun because I find new weaknesses. So like this past weekend, I did really well at a burpee box jump over workout, but then I
Yeah.
watched my burpee speed and it was so much slower than my competitors. So I was like, man, if I can work on speeding up my burpee speed, I'll be great. So I need to work on speeding up my burpees and like picking up the sandbag under fatigue. So the weakness list is always growing as I compete more,
Yeah.
but it just gives me something else to work on.
Yeah. And is it difficult because CrossFit you don't really know I mean you have an idea of certain things that you're going to come up like when you go to Madison you know that okay I'm probably going to do a few of these movements no matter what because they always do.
Right.
But there's usually something that's a little bit out of people's comfort zone. Is that hard for you? Like I know some people that's the most difficult thing because you can't pre-train for some certain things in the same way. What's that like for you, knowing there's probably going to be something you haven't trained for?
I personally love it because I
Yeah,
love the chaos and the kind of carnage that happens backstage because you either have it or you don't. And at
yeah,
that point, whatever you've done in the gym, that's all the cards you have to play with before you go out on the floor. And
yeah,
I love it. Like this past weekend, I didn't test any of the workouts going into the weekend. I was like, let's just see what happens.
yeah,
Whereas my competitors tested them multiple times, which is fine. But when you get to the games, like that's not reality. And
yeah.
I love the, okay, how fit are you? How smart are you on the floor? Can you strategically break this up? It kind of adds a little bit more excitement to it.
Yeah, I think you're probably different that way. There's
I am
lots of
different that way. But
um,
I did know, like Adler, this made me feel good.
yep,
He didn't test any of the workouts beforehand either. So I was
yeah.
like, okay, I'm not the only crazy person. It's just mentally, I'd rather not know where it's going to hurt until it hurts, and you just have to get through it.
Yeah, I maybe that's a level of experience, I guess, at that
I
point
don't
too,
know.
right? So I don't know. One of the things, and you did mention that, especially early in your career, the whole community piece around CrossFit is there, and you also kind of have built that even with fans. I mean, fans feel this connection to you, and you may not even kind of know some of them. How important is that for you to be part of the community that is what CrossFit provides that's maybe a little bit different than some other kind of very individual sports like you're in?
Right. I feel like CrossFit just unites people in a way that's kind of hard to put into words.
Hmm.
You show up, you sweat with someone, and you die next to them. And it's almost the most vulnerable thing you could do to
Hmm.
be in like the ugliest state of sweat,
Yeah,
breathing heavy, being stinky, but yet these people still accept you. So it kind of
yeah,
just bonds you in a way. Unfortunately, at this season of my life, I started training from home
yeah,
just to avoid distractions and
yeah,
unnecessary drama and stress. So I do miss the community part.
yeah,
But I think eventually when I'm done competing, I'll absolutely go back to it. But this is a season of a little bit selfishness, focusing
yeah.
on what I need to and just getting it done. Because I used to go to an affiliate and I would be there so long that I would feel so bad that Blakely was in the childcare room that
Yeah,
long
yeah.
because I was talking to people, had to move stuff, and just like unnecessary time wasted. So now I'm just
And I'm
very
sure
deliberate.
people are coming up to you, knowing who you are, and
Exactly.
asking you tips and all those things as well. So
Right.
it's not that you don't want to do that, but it does create an additional time on each end of your workout, I'm sure, right?
Exactly. Yeah. You completely hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And I'm too nice. I'm not going to say,
Yeah.
no, let me finish my bench press. That's just
Yeah,
rude.
exactly. It's funny that you mentioned Jeffrey Adler, and we interviewed him a little while ago, and that's now he's in a different position because he is able to spend all that time in it. But he said, like, I still coach. I go in, I coach classes, I do all that stuff, and so you could tell
Oh, wow.
it's just a difference in kind of what your priorities are at that time too. So and he's
Right.
lucky his wife is there with him and everything too. So. Um, but bring it back to kind of your goals and what you plan. Like, do you have going into the CrossFit Games this year? Do you have very specific? Are you one of those people who write down all your goals? I mean, it sounds like maybe you do it a little differently per workout because you don't
Right.
kind of test them the way some people will know exactly. I want to hit this number. How do you approach goal setting?
I have what I call dreams and then goals. So my dreams are very big. So if I don't accomplish my dream, it's okay. Like a dream would be top 5 at the games or potentially podium at the games. But that's like, if I don't hit it, okay, it's okay. It's a dream. My goal for this year would just be top 10. Last year coming in, I was 11th.
Yeah.
So we're just talking about moving up 1 or 2 spots. And I think it's very obtainable. And then I don't get too overwhelmed if
Yeah.
my goal is too arbitrary. But I try and do the same thing for life as well as fitness goals. Like if you set goals that are too big, you'll just get discouraged and never keep going. So
Yeah.
realistic goal would be top 10.
So when you set goals that way, and you talked about kind of different ones across life, like do you look at those all together at the same time? Like, do you say, okay, I'm going to make sure I spend this amount of time doing these other things that are of interest to me, and obviously spending time with your daughter and what you do there? Do you kind of think through all those things at the same time?
I would say no, kind of
Yeah.
as each one presents themselves. Like a personal goal is to pay off my car in 2 years. So that
Yeah.
one is just deliberately maybe not going out shopping as much and making a little
Mhm.
extra towards a car payment. So just little goals as they come my way.
Yep. Yep. And well, and the thing is yours probably shift a fair amount depending on the opportunity that comes up and
Exactly.
what you're able to do and through that. Um, what so people obviously are starting to know more about you, but is there something that people would be completely surprised that they maybe haven't heard about you? Like, is there something out there that you just think, oh yeah, okay, this is one thing that people probably don't know about Arielle Loewen?
It's hard to say.
Yeah,
Depends how much they follow along with
yeah,
me.
I
I
guess,
think
right?
one
Yeah,
one thing I'm really proud of is I don't train as much as my competitors. Like you said, Adler will be in the gym all day, and some of my others
sure.
will. I'll be in the
Yeah.
gym 2 to 3 hours at most,
Hmm.
and then I clock out and I'm done, and I'll go to the park and I try and make dinner every night, and we try and eat dinner as a family every night. So just
Yeah.
prioritizing bigger things. Like growing up, I always sat down and had dinner with my family. So I make a
Hmm.
habit to do that with my family, prioritizing healthy families, healthy marriages, and stuff like that, which people don't always see because they just see like CrossFit and competing. But
Yeah.
there's so much more to health on the floor, mental health when you prioritize things that are important like relationships, family, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think, and that's I think what sets you apart. I think people may not know that, but when they do, I think that's also what connects them the most with you. Because probably, I would think most people, unless you're a top elite athlete, whether it's in CrossFit or something else, um, that's probably connects more with what people are trying to do in their lives. So I think that's pretty cool that you're able to talk to, that's how you approach things and still are able to have success in those areas. So.
Thank you. And that's the biggest thing. I get a lot of awesome messages that are like, just came back from having a kiddo. I still want to compete. How do I do that? Or what did you do? And the best thing I can tell people is you just focus on health,
Yeah.
mental health, your family's health, your physical health, and you'll be amazed at how many things just start thriving when you
Yeah.
prioritize health. And
Yeah.
not crazy like working out 3 hours a day, but just, okay, 30 minutes a day for 5 days in a row.
Yeah. Yeah.
Little obtainable goals.
Yeah. Well, and
Mhm.
okay, so that and you've kind of touched on it there, and maybe we'll just see is there a couple more things that if one of the things everybody looks at for you is that you not only you had your daughter, and in a pretty short period of time you were back at a pretty high level in training and things like that.
Right.
But there's lots of people that just that I think would be listening to the podcast that also struggle a little bit thinking, okay, I'm, how am I ever going to be back to what I was before or any of those things? Or, and you've talked about it there, but are there a couple of things that if you're a mom who's listening to this thinking, you know what, I just want to get back in shape or start to do that, but I feel kind of overwhelmed with the responsibilities that go with being a mom. Do you have a couple of very
Right.
specific things that you think would, what could they do to just kind of move that first step forward to get themselves back out there?
Yeah, it's very overwhelming. So I would say those listening, it is overwhelming to want to start and look at where you were before. So like the pre-baby, how you look, the pre-baby, how you felt. It is overwhelming, but I almost see that as your dream. Your dream is to get back to that person. So if you look too far ahead or look too far back at pictures of where you used to look perfect, you've got to realistically set small goals to get back there. So one that I did was after she was born, I gave myself 4 days a week, you will go to the CrossFit class. So that means maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, take Thursday off, go Friday. 4 days just worked for me and my body felt good doing it. Set realistic goals that are maybe weekly based. Okay, for 1 week, I will go every 4 days. And then the next week, you do the same thing. And then if that feels good, you up it to 5 days. Just really setting small goals and realistic. And then you just focus week by week on, okay, this week, I'm going to go 4 times a week and I'm going to only have one cookie after dinner instead of 3, or one cookie after only dinner, not after lunch and dinner. Small changes to help you stay healthy. And if you keep it week by week based, it's a lot less overwhelming than by the month. Oh, I just messed up halfway through the month. I've got to start all the way over. I'll wait for the first of the month to hit again. It's like, no, each week reassess. And then it's not overwhelming. But I never went into, after having Blakely, okay, I'm going to the games. That was never on my mind. My mind was always, let's get healthy. What does health look like? Get to the gym, eat better. And that's all I focused on.
Yeah, I mean that's great for people because really that can be for anybody is just focus on getting healthy and staying healthy. So
right. And the biggest thing too is you say like you don't have time, you don't have motivation, but I'll say out of the 4 days I would go, I only really wanted to go maybe 1 day a week or 2 days a week. So like
yeah,
it's okay to not want to, but it
yeah,
can't be an excuse over and over again. Like, oh, I'm not motivated. It's like,
yeah.
suck it up, get there, and you'll be so happy come the end of the week when you forced yourself to go 4 times a week. And then it just becomes into your routine. But also, sorry, I'm adding a lot.
No,
I also
that's great.
knew I'm a full-time stay-at-home mom at this season of my life. So I knew I
Yeah,
had to find a gym with childcare. So
yeah,
if you have your kids full-time, you just have to find a gym that accepts kids and that your kids feel comfortable at.
yeah. Well, and your kids are seeing you prioritizing that in your life, which is also
Right.
a good kind of role modeling thing as well for healthy, living in their lives in the future as well.
Exactly. And 1 hour of peace goes a huge way mentally and physically.
Yeah, yeah. I think any mother would love to have that hour at some point if they can figure that out.
Exactly.
So obviously you've got some big stuff coming up. The CrossFit Games is next for you.
Yeah.
If people are wanting to follow you and what's happening with your journey over the next little while, what are some of the best ways to do that, Arielle?
I'd say the best is just Instagram.
Yeah.
It's at Arielle Arm. My maiden name used to be Armstrong, so I had the arm in there and I just never changed it. But that's where you could probably stay up to date with most things, or just tune into the games and hopefully you'll see me on there.
Yeah. Well, what we'll do is we'll put in the show notes. We'll put your Instagram in there as well, so they can connect right through to that. I know if you put your name into Instagram, it still comes up anyway, so they should be fine with
Perfect.
finding it, even if they don't have the same one. But the other side is too, we'll make sure that we have the click through so that you can follow Arielle's CrossFit Games journey. Really cool to see, and I know you'll have lots of fans watching to see how things go for that. So I know you've been
Thank
busy,
you.
and you're busy all the time. So thank you for taking the time to do this. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. And to everybody else, we will talk again on Big Idea, Big Moves.